I can't tell you how much I've been looking forward to this. The Sinister Grace chapter, the first and only full original chapter of 2025, is here, and I've been waiting so patiently to talk about its lore. It's been no secret that this was my most hyped release of the year by far, an original chapter based on Asian folklore with tons of gore and potential for lore. It was all right up my alley. And it made the wait for this chapter nothing short of agonising, but for the most part, Sinister Grace was oh so very much worth that wait. A rich cultural background from a region of the world DBD's never visited before, two fantastically realised characters built into their setting in ways that make them feel organic and human, all tied together with immaculate animations, lore and sound design. It's got everything a high quality original should have, except a map, weirdly. The only dark cloud over Sinister Grace was the PTB it was on. Outside of the new chapter content, patch 9.2.0 looked nothing short of apocalyptic, but behaviour seemed to have learned their lesson, for now, and allowed V and the Krasue to take centre stage this patch. There's so much to talk about with regards to the story and world building of this chapter. So much meat, if you like. And I'll be starting with Burong Sukapat, aka the Krasue today, and we'll be covering V Bunya Sak in a video a little bit later, hopefully as soon as I can. In almost every way, the Krasue lived up to my expectations and Hope 2025's only original killer, and the lore is no exception. So we'll be trawling through the story and world around the Krasue to get a grasp of what Burong Sukapat is like as a character, and see how well she lines up with existing Thai folklore and horror cinema. Welcome, friends and foes, survivors and killers, to the lore of Burong Sukapat, the Krasue. We don't know a huge amount about Burong's early life. We don't know where she was born beyond just somewhere in Thailand. We don't even really know when she was born beyond a couple of small clues in her add-ons, but we do know a few things. She grew up wanting to be an opera singer, but despite her talent, her career never went off quite the way she planned, and despite the support of her childhood friend Janjira, she found herself desperate and at a loose end. Until another singer, Malai, darkened her door with an offer that would change her life forever, that she said would cause Burong's star to shine just like hers did. But it comes at a cost. Something else will inhabit your body every night while you sleep. Burong drank it almost without hesitation. It's gotta be worth a go, right? What's the worst that could happen? Burong starts to enjoy success immediately. The opera director loved the new depth her voice could reach, and she was in the running for a full leading role. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Burong started to cough up blood and woke up one night in the middle of someone's yard, covered in the bloody remains of a chicken. Burong called Janjira back up. Surely she was just sleepwalking, and Janjira being here might help her stay in bed and get some rest. That is until Burong awoke to Janjira's disemboweled and mutilated corpse. She wasted no time in finding Malai, who told her what she'd done, about the true nature of the potion she had given to Burong. Malai had given the elixir to Burong to pass the curse of the Krasue off of herself and onto her. She thought Burong's burning desire for fame would allow her to overlook the Krasue's hunger and pursue her dream. Unfortunately for Malai, she was absolutely right. The Krasue emerged from Burong's body and tore Malai to shreds, but when Burong awoke, she felt nothing. No guilt, no horror at what the Krasue had done, and seemingly no desire to get rid of the curse or pass on to anybody else. And that was the start of Burong and the Krasue's unholy partnership. The Krasue's influence saw Burong's star rising as she took centre stage for the first time at the opera, and Burong learned to live with the Krasue's nightly feeds, until its attention was drawn elsewhere by something offering the biggest meal in reality. The entity and the Krasue share a bottomless hunger. The entity for the pain and emotions of innocent victims, and the Krasue for their flesh, blood and bone. It was a match made in the fog, with Burong taken along for the ride, and thus the entity claimed Burong Sukapat and the Krasue for its own. The first thing you might realise is just how short Burong's story actually is. It's only 700 words. That's longer than most of the lore we get for licensed characters, but much shorter than most of our recent original killers. As a point of comparison, Singularity's lore is 1100 words, and the Houndmaster's lore is almost twice as long as hers, pushing 1400 words. You might think I'd be very upset about this. If you know me, you know I love long, detailed stories that I can sink my teeth into, but I also know that unlike you guys, I'm also paid to do this. If anyone is prepped to read a long bio, it's me. A lot of people cannot be fucked to read lengthy lore descriptions, especially when to do so you have to either find the wiki or deal with the 1001 Arabian Nights of scrolling when you're trying to read anything in DBD's garbage bio client. So stories trending towards brevity might be a good thing to encourage players to actually read the damn things. And with the promises of lore coming back in a big way this chapter, we're likely going to get more detailed storytelling for Burong later down the line anyway. But the other reason I'm not at all worried about how brief Burong's story is because it doesn't come at the cost of realising her properly as a character. A good character bio in Dead by Daylight will always find a way to answer these three questions. What do they want? Why do they want it? And what will they do to get it? And Burong's story covers the first 2 points within the first couple of sentences. Burong Sukapat operatic rehearsals in Thailand were a sea of emotion, but despite tiring efforts, she was unable to become anything more than an understudy. What started as a desire to share her gift became an unshakable need for fame. There we have it in black and white. What she wants is fame and recognition of her skills as a singer, and she wants it because she feels underappreciated for her hard work and talents. These are traits that don't require much explanation. They're very common, normal things that most people want in their own lives at some point in some way. Recognition for their skills, hard work and talent. And that means the core of her motivation is outlined very cleanly very early on, so we can focus entirely on the third question. What will Burong do to get what she wants? At the start of her story, Burong is a pretty pitiable character. As our protagonist, we're already set up to view her sympathetically or in a positive light, as she struggles with recognition in her career. That is a relatable motive to do anything, and her decision to drink Malai's mysterious potion isn't portrayed as an act of selfishness. If anything, she doesn't really know the implications of what she's doing until much later on in the story, so we might be set up to see Burong as a victim of Malai's manipulation. It would definitely be in character for a female killer in Dead by Daylight to be a victim of circumstance, of other people's choices driving them on the path of a killer. Almost every female killer, and a good portion of the male ones, became who they are because someone else changed them into the mould of a killer against their will. Whether that's in a story like Hags, which is literally just a victim made to suffer, or one like Houndmaster, where Mollak killing her father drove her to a lifetime of bloodthirst and vengeance. The only female killer who doesn't fall into this bracket at all is the Skull Merchant. She's a self-made woman in every sense of the word. And at first glance, Burong looks like she'll fall into the regular hurt people type category. But as we'll see later, that isn't entirely true. And we start to see it when she enlists her friend Janjira to help her sleep. When Burong wakes to find what's left of Janjira splattered across her bedroom, she reacts in much the same way any of us would. She's mortified, shocked, upset, just sitting there stunned. But I notice there's one emotion she doesn't seem to feel at all. Guilt. After all, it was her actions that indirectly killed Janjira. She knows all this started when she drank the potion. She ignored the warning signs like the bloody cough, and she leveraged their friendship to put Janjira in harm's way. She may not have intended to, but she is on some level responsible for what happened to Janjira, and there's no sense of her understanding or internalizing that. The story doesn't draw attention to it yet, but Burong is already set up to not really internalize her role in Janjira's death yet, and this sets up what will happen later when she goes to see Malai. The meeting with Malai marks the first time that Burong truly understands what's going on, and the first time we get to really see the Krasue possessing her in action, ripping Malai apart and leaving Burong standing over the pieces. And Burong, for the first time, truly understands the cost of what she's done to herself, and she seems to feel nothing, at least not until the director calls her back and tells her that she got the part. At the end of the day, it's all worth it for Burong to finally get what she wanted. She's seen the worst of what the Krasue can do to people, whether she wants them dead or not, but she's decided she can live with it. She doesn't care to stop, even though she has that choice to. Malai passed the curse on to somebody else. There's every chance she could do it too, but the choice never even seems to occur to Burong. She's getting what she wants out of the deal, as the Krasue's gift bestow her with a better singing voice. She doesn't have to go out and kill anyone herself. The worst she has to worry about is cleaning up sometimes, or coughing up blood or bits of meat every so often. Maybe waking up someone she didn't expect to be. Burong is not a violent serial killer, but she is complicit in what the Krasue is doing on some level, and has decided there's an acceptable amount of loss to be responsible for, so long as she gets what she wants out of the deal. This is quite unique as far as DBD's killers go. Many killers are fairly clean-cut victims of circumstance like Artist or Spirit. These characters are often very easy to relate to or sympathise with, but it can require a leap in logic to justify their presence as a killer, and how good or bad the lore winds up being tends to depend on whether or not they can actually stick that landing. But many others are at the opposite end of the sympathy spectrum, larger-than-life megalomaniacs like Skull Merchant and Doctor, who kill people for the love of the game, or who at least use their jobs as an excuse to indulge their desires for violence, domination, and cruelty. That can be a lot of fun to watch, but runs the risk of making your killer feel one note, like a Saturday morning cartoon villain, although sometimes being cartoonish is kind of the point. Burong's moral dubiousness is quite relatable by comparison. We all have an acceptable level of suffering we're okay with inflicting in the background to live our lives. We might eat animals that we know died to feed us, or drive cars we know are polluting the planet, buy smartphones and technology we know are made by underpaid child workers in a factory halfway across the world, or buy the last pack of bog roll at Tesco knowing the next poor person coming into the store with a bathroom emergency is going to have to make do with kitchen towels instead. Burong's morality is an extension of that. It's simple, realistic, and understandable, without being in any way justifiable. She sees the Krasue as a separate thing from her, and doesn't seem to take responsibility for what it does. Whether or not you view Burong as evil for what she's doing, or simply opportunistic, depends on your perspective. At the end of the day, passing the curse on to someone else does not reduce the amount of harm that Krasue is doing, and would require her to deceive somebody else, just like Malai did to her. But even if that's your outlook on Burong, the story makes it clear that she's not holding on to the Krasue's curse for altruistic reasons. She's doing it because it benefits her. Which is what makes the end of the story feel kind of cathartic, as the Krasue's independence bites her in the ass in spectacular fashion. The Krasue's hunger lures it to the entity's realm with the promise of fresh meat in endless supply, but Burong can't very well just let her head go wandering off without her, so she has to come too, pulling her away from the life of stardom that she gave up so much for. The same monster she allied herself with to rise to the top is the same thing that ultimately ensures she will never grace the stage again. Her crime is also her punishment. Now that's a satisfying ending. Burong's story is brief but effective, illustrating the important parts of her life and establishing her character very well, while leaving the door open for future lore installments to flesh her out or explore her relationships with other characters like Janjira. While it doesn't have quite enough meat on its bones, if you'll pardon the pun, to measure up to the truly exceptional killer lore of Days Gone By like Twins, I absolutely love the way that Burong's story sets her morality apart from the other killers, and cannot wait to see more of her in the months and years to come. And that's not even going into the creature itself, the monster with which Burong makes her unholy alliance, the Krasue. I'll get into the meat and potatoes of the monster in a moment. First, I have something I'd like to show you. Before the entity took her away to the realm, Burong Sukapat knew more than anyone the pains of having your sleep disrupted. But while I can't help you if there's a flesh-eating Thai spirit possessing your body every night, today's video sponsor Manta Sleep can definitely help you get the best of your rest. All my life I've been sleeping poorly. I sleep irregularly, sometimes struggle to get to sleep at all because my brain's always working on something. If you need proof of this, by the way, I am recording this ad read at 2 in the morning. So anything that can help me make the most out of my restful hours is critically important to me. And that's why I've been using sleep masks for years. But Manta Sleep's new masks have been a complete game changer. Manta's masks have these comfortable straps that go on either side of your head to ensure a clean fit, even on a very large head with very large hair like mine. The foam eye cups inside the mask are also adjustable, so you can ensure 100% blackout and keep all light and distractions from outside from disrupting your rest and sleep. Oh. There you are, I forgot. The mask I have here is the Manta Sound Mask, connected via Bluetooth to my phone. So I can listen to some white noise and spoken word recordings, or even just some calming music, without worrying about headphones getting in the way or falling out of my ears. Manta Sleep even sent me these freezable alternative eye caps too, which you pop in the freezer ahead of time and stick inside the mask when you go to sleep. They will soothe your eyes while you sleep, which is amazing in a hot or dry environment, or if you often go to sleep with a headache. And this won't compromise your blackout coverage either. Whether you want to nap anywhere in comfort, or just fancy a better night's sleep once in a while, I cannot recommend Manta Sleep enough, and I'm so glad to have worked with these guys. Use my coupon code PIXELBUSH for 10% off your order, or check out my link in the description to retake your rest and pick up a quality product that you can feel the benefit from every single night. And now let's get back to the gory story of the Krasue. The killer lore for Sinister Grace isn't just the backstory of Burong Sukapat, it's also the story of the Krasue itself, the curse that took hold on Burong and hijacks her head to satisfy its endless hunger every night. The Krasue isn't something made for Dead by Daylight, it's a real piece of Thai folklore that's been part of stories in that part of the world for generations. The image of a woman with a floating, disembodied head attached to a bunch of organs is not unique to Thailand. The Krasue is part of a family of myths from all around Southeast Asia. Cambodia has the Arp, Laos has the Kasu, Indonesia has the Layak, the Philippines has the Manananggal, and Japan has the Nukakubi. In Vietnam they're called Malai, which is pretty funny because Malai was the name of the woman who gave Burong the elixir that triggered transformation in the first place. Nice how these things tie up, isn't it? The Krasue and its associated myths all differ from each other depending on the region, the time period and the storyteller, but they often share common behaviour and traits. They're a spirit that either possesses or takes on the form of a woman during the day, often a young, beautiful woman with the only tell of them more than they seem being that they look and act tired all the time, like they've been up all night. At night, the head detaches from their body and floats around with the organ still hanging off the neck, as they prowl the night to feed. What they eat varies from story to story, but whatever it is universally disgusting. Sometimes it's human excrement or garbage, sometimes it's offal or rotting meat or corpses, sometimes it's livestock or babies or even the unborn fetuses of pregnant women that they eat out of their bodies. I do think it's kind of funny that for a chapter hyped up to be the goriest we've ever had, that they actually toned down the grossness in the lore. There's no eating shit or babies here, because I'm 90% sure that anyone who wasn't familiar with the myth would have been put off by mentions of those things, or would have thought they were just edgy inclusions for shock value. On the topic of how graphically gory the Krasue myth is, I really appreciate how the Krasue's lore and visual design are just so unapologetically grisly. Outside of the Moris, Dead by Daylight tends to veer away from heavy gore or visceral detail in their killer designs these days. Most of our recent original killers have either had more grounded portrayals of human serial killers, or just kind of weird guys. But the Krasue is some raw, unfiltered body horror that feels authentic to the disturbing original myth. Look at elements like the blood splattering when she gets stunned even in body form, the bloody pop of the regurgitation projectile, the intestines being controlled like tentacles. It's all so good, and makes the potentially absurd looking threat of a disembodied floating head feel so much more authentic and natural for Dead by Daylight. When it comes to the portrayal of the Krasue as a malevolent, ravenous spirit, authenticity was the single most important thing to get right, because when you're dealing with real mythology, you've got to show some respect. Show that you understand the material that you're monetizing. The guts and gore present in the lore, the visual design, and even many of the add-ons were part of this, showing the grisliness of the original source material with little censored or watered down. But perhaps just as important was the choice to portray Burong and the Krasue as two distinct beings. Burong is possessed by a Krasue spirit at night, but isn't being completely controlled by it. She's not an entirely innocent victim in all of this, and that's in keeping with a lot of contemporary Thai portrayals of the Krasue. One of these things I did to prep for this chapter's release was spend some time looking up and watching some Thai horror movies featuring the Krasue to see how Thai people tell modern stories about these old myths. 2019's Inhuman is one I could recommend to basically anyone, and it shares a lot of hallmarks with Burong's lore. A normal young woman finds herself coughing up blood as livestock goes missing around her, tensions rise as she finds out she's become a Krasue against her will, and the bodies start to drop as she begins to figure out how to manage the monster living inside her. The story is pretty simple, and the movie is a really solid watch, if a bit slow and long at 2 hours, so if you can find a copy of it with English subtitles, I would definitely recommend giving it a go. I would not be surprised if the lore or design teams behind Sinister Grace watched Inhuman before making the chapter. The movie strikes so many beats that Burong's story does and offers an explanation as to how one might become a Krasue that lines up with DBD's lore. If a woman drinks water that the bearer of the Krasue curse has spat into, they will become a Krasue as well. And Malai's drink that she offers to Burong is described as clear, meaning it's probably water that Malai spat into. The power design also mirrors this aspect of the myth, with the Krasue regurgitating her viscera and saliva all over the survivors and infecting them with the curse. But the biggest clue to me is the scene where Sai and her friend Noi collect glowing plants in the grove in the forest that will prevent the nightly transformations. The idea of there being a cure for being a Krasue isn't something original myth concerns itself with too much, but it's clearly an allusion to the so-called Krasue mushroom, which grows in rural Thailand and is so called because it glows in the dark, just like the flying head of the Krasue glows in the night. And sure enough, guess what made it into Dead by Daylight as the limited item to counter the Krasue's power? Glowing mushrooms that you consume to hold the curse at bay. A mixture between the real-life Thai mushrooms and the glowing herbs we see in the movie. The only real incongruity I'm seeing between Burong's lore and the established mythology is the idea of spreading the curse breaking the Krasue's spell on you. That's why Malai did what she did. She infected Burong to pass the curse along so she could live free of the Krasue's influence. This was done presumably to give Burong more agency in her own story and highlight just how morally detached she is from the actions of the Krasue, because the day she speaks to Malai, she knows that there's a way to escape if she really wanted it, someone else she could pass the curse on to. But she doesn't, because she values what the Krasue gives her too much to let it go. In my opinion, the compromise enriches Burong's story and elevates her from just another innocent victim to an active participant who on some level chose to be what she is today. She makes that choice every night when she goes to sleep, and it's part of what makes Sinister Grace's story so satisfying to read. Let me tell you something that most of my regular viewers will likely have picked up by now. For a long time now, but especially since the FNAF chapter got announced last year, I've been getting increasingly disengaged with the new content DBDs I'm putting out month after month. If I could be honest with you, making videos on things like Tokyo Ghoul or Five Nights at Freddy's or Castlevania, or even The Walking Dead and D&D, have just felt like an obligation to me, to have a proper collection of videos that anyone can go back to and ensure that no one's favourite chapter gets missed out. But it won't surprise many of you that my enthusiasm just hasn't really been there. My heart hasn't been in it. And I've been pouring my enthusiasm into other projects I can care about, like the more gameplay discussion-y videos, huge projects like the Grandmaster's Guide to Skull Merchant and the Complete Lore Timeline, and more chapter concepts like Potential and Problems and the brand new one I just made, Blood in the Mire. All this time I've been waiting so patiently for an original chapter that wasn't overshadowed by gigantic headline-grabbing licenses announced months in advance, and Sinister Grace has delivered in spectacular fashion. The Krasue is the kind of character I started making videos on this game to talk about. Her story is simple but very effective, steeped in a deep cultural history and brought to life with Dead by Daylight's unique tone and approach to its antagonists. Burong Sukapat feels distinct from the other killers in terms of her personality and her motive. And her mundanity puts her at odds with the inhuman hunger of the monster she bargained with. Short but sweet, tightly written, and with plenty of room for later expansion in future stories. The Krasue is everything I hoped she would be from a character and lore perspective. I said 9 months ago when Doomed Course dropped that Houndmaster raised the bar for high quality original storytelling on par with the all-time greats of DBD's killer lore, and the Krasue reaches that level in her own way. I've long said that the best DBD stories have been some of the older ones, like Plague, Oni and Twins, and Krasue and Houndmaster both have stories that feel like these knockouts of old. The only issue I have with the character is I don't particularly enjoy playing her. The projectile is very, very fun, but controlling head form is not really my style. But let's be honest here, that's not terribly surprising because you guys know that I have quite an acquired taste when it comes to the killer powers I enjoy playing with. Not feeling too hot on the power is not enough to stop me really appreciating what Sinister Grace has to offer. And we're not done yet. V Bunyasak also releases today, and her lore is also great, so I'll be getting round to making her video very, very soon. But that's not all I'm working on at the moment. The new Toxic Avenger movie came out at the end of August, and I've got a bit to say about that, so that'll be the next installment in the Potential and Problem series, but before all of that, I've got a Spanish Man's Throne Gauntlet that needs picking up. This is going to be fun.